everyone. I'm Colombe. This is Andrea. We'll take you through the methodologies. Disclaimer, I hate PowerPoints. We're using them because we have a lot of information, but I prefer to interact with you. So if you have questions, if you don't get it, raise your hand, scream. Let's be interactive for this. So as Anthony and Kim mentioned, last year, we discussed the building blocks. And some of us said, well, it's time to bring it to citizens. And in typical ADF manner, they said, OK, let's do it. Let's try it. Let's reverse the process. Let's bring those building blocks to citizens, and let's see what they come up with. Spoiler alert, it's quite different. And a lot of the conclusion reached, I really didn't think would be the outcomes. So please bear with us for just a minute. So what we did was we brought 4 building blocks to a group of between 10 to 200 citizens each time. And we told them, identify the main issues you see with this theme. Prioritize them. Which ones do you think are most important to your life? Come up with solutions, and decide which solutions you want implemented. That was the core of it.
And here you can see a quick overview of the events that we hosted, together with the ADF, obviously. So Nairobi, the Power of Voting, with the Moi Brain Foundation as a partner host. This was the biggest event, almost 200 people, depending on the time of the long 5 hours event. And most interesting, the makeshift of the room was really non-white collar participants. So there were a lot of farmers, there were a lot of young people going into apprenticeship. So it was very different than this room, for example. And it was super interesting, and you're going to see the results that came out of it. And each event was actually quite different itself. Bucharest, Power of the People, it was more young professionals or young students from university. Bogota, the Power of Information, we had a lot of people working in governments and journalists. And finally, in Prague, the Power of Political Parties were a smaller event with a lot of senior folks. So really, throughout these 4 events, not because we wanted, but because it happened, we had a very different session of society and obviously geography coming together and discussing these themes that are obviously very dear to our work.
So let me take you through the methodology quickly. For each of those events, we opened with a panel. The idea was, if I put all of you actually in front of the power of voting, it's going to be very difficult at 8 a.m. to come up with big issues and big solutions. So we said, let's bring very different people in the room, and let's try to think a bit outside of the box and give some food for thought to participants. This lasted half an hour. After this, the groups came together. So we had online and offline. And so in person, people broke in groups between 12 people to 30 people, online as well, depending on the room capacity. And they talked about what issues they felt. So it could be feelings, like, I hate voting. I really don't like it. It's a practice I don't like. To, I don't trust the process. Politicians are too corrupt. So they talked about the issues. Online, they did the same. And then they came back, they presented the issues to the group, and discussed it. And the next step was that's actually in Bucharest when they talked about the issues. And the next step, they came together and they prioritized those issues. We told them, unfortunately, you came up with 100 issues. All are very, very valid. We don't have time to discuss them. Let's pick 3, and let's try to find solutions to 3 issues. And so you can see in the next slide the very developed voting system. They put stickers on the little post-its to prioritize the issues they cared more about. Same online, basically, and came up with 3 main topics they wanted to focus their 5 hours on. The next step was, OK, we have a lot of problems. We knew that. Let's try to find solutions. So people went back to their original groups. And as always, at the beginning, when you're told, please solve all of the issues with what misinformation and disinformation is, it's a bit difficult. But after hearing from the panelists and after coming up themselves with the main issues, they were actually really able to come up with great solutions. And we had, again, way too many solutions, both in person and online. So we told them, focus on what works in your country. So for example, in Bogota, focus on what can be done in Colombia in order to solve what misinformation and disinformation is doing. But think about solutions that we can export. So either that could be valid at the global level, or that you can actually come to Greece and say, look, you guys should implement this. We tried it. It was great. Let's do it. And so they then prioritized the proposals and came up with 3 concrete solutions each. Actually, not 3. Kenya came up with 5 because there were too many. But for the rest, they came up with 3 concrete solutions each that they could more or less agree on, and that we'll go through in just a minute. Again, very, very detailed voting system, as you can see. And at the end, we concluded, we told them that we would tell you all about the recommendations they have, and it's also available online, and that we will try to hold every single policymaker accountable to implementing this, and that DCF would be taking this forward.
So just to cover quickly the issue and solutions that came up of this exercise, you can see here an overview of the 4 tables, or the 4 events, and the main issues. I won't go through all of them, but as I think was mentioned in the previous presentation, corruption was a big topic, transparency and education came in different forms throughout every exercise. So clearly, these were big, I wouldn't call them blind spots of expert, but things that are kind of timeless. They always come up throughout democracy process and exercise. Colombe and I do a lot of this, and these are recurring concerns of citizens that I'm very happy they surface also doing this exercise, because I think it's something we got to tackle if we want to improve democracy.
And it also wasn't like we need more education, right? It was very specific in terms of how the education systems were failing them, whether it was lack of participation in it and so on.
In terms of solutions, again, I'm going to go quickly through them, then later in private you can ask us all the questions, but you can see in Nairobi, there are 5 main topics that come up. One that I really like was the blacklisting of politicians that have been held guilty of corruption. Not because I think that people cannot make mistakes, but because obviously corruption is one of those issues that are completely destroying democracies across the planet, in some countries more than others, but I guess in any country, this is a problem. And I really like the fact that people were a bit harsh as well on this topic and say, you shouldn't have a second chance if you are corrupted, in Kenya in this case, because it's really one of the cancers of our system. And as an Italian, I completely sympathize and I understand the situation. So I think that was a very strong proposal that we should consider way more, I think, in our democracy. If we go to Bucharest. In Bucharest, again, very interesting proposal, very innovative, forward-looking. I really like the first one you see here, democratize the education itself. So it's not only about civic education, it's not only about bringing democracy to the curriculum, but it's actually thinking about teaching methods and practices for young people to hack their curriculum, to prioritize issues within the school curriculum, to have a more equal relationship with teachers and professors. And I think that practicing democracy since a young age probably makes you way likely to want to defend it and uphold it later in life. So I find it as a very interesting topic as well. Bogota was focused on misinformation, disinformation. Excellent proposal. I think I could develop all of the 3 of them. The first one is something that was mentioned also before, an index of media companies based on how accurate the information is. So many people in the room were concerned about the fact that even established newspapers and media houses were not reliable as they used to be, or they were not perceived as reliable as they used to be. So the idea of setting up a body, an institution, an organization that could verify and rate newspapers and media outlets based on their veracity. And obviously, this kind of grading being non-political, independent, citizens-led, I found it a very interesting way to kind of break the deadlock of how do we deal with misinformation that so far no one has really solved. And finally, we had Prague. It was focused on political parties. I really like the second proposal here. For me, is, as I built political parties in the past, the issue of public funding comes very often for new political movements. The fact that if you're in established political parties, in many systems, you get money from the state. And if you're a newcomer, you not only have to fundraise for yourself, but you're also up against public money, basically. So the idea of winning public money as a new political formation, not only based on your previous performance, because obviously if you're new, you don't have a track record, but actually on polling, on official polling, a few months before the elections, that could help you as a new formation again to compete with established political parties.
Just a few lessons learned. The first 2, we kind of expected it, didn't expect it. The last one, we expected it. So as mentioned, education was front and center. And we've been doing this for a while, but we didn't think it would be for democracy in every single consultation, kind of the first topic. I know it sounds basic, but because in every single consultation, it was very different. The solutions were very different, from hacking the curriculum to training, to actually giving education to journalists on how to identify better disinformation and so on. It was really front and center. The second one is, often in those rooms, and at ADF, for example, we speak a lot about participatory democracy. It's one of my favorite topics, personally. People didn't care. And this, I really didn't expect it. So we tried to talk to participants after, and we're like, what about citizens' assemblies, right? What about participatory budgeting? What do you think of full branches of governments and so on? I love all of those topics. I think they are great solutions. And people were like, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's good. We're not against. It's a good thing, but it's really not a priority as long as we don't have funding, as long as we don't have security at the polls, as long as all of this. And so it was kind of a reality check, and I think that's also when this effort was valuable after last year's ADF, where we came up with a lot of wonderful, detailed, complicated solutions to also sometimes bring it back to basics. And the last one, we knew it and we were very happy about it, but participants were really eager to engage. And we're not just saying this because they were very happy to do it, but because in all of those places, they said, okay, if you guys choose to bring it forward, we'll campaign for it. We'll work with you to make it happen. We'll try to get politicians. And for example, in Nairobi, during the event, we actually had MPs that have started working on the blacklisting corrupt politicians parts and trying to bring it to Parliament. They said, this is great. We don't normally get rooms like this. Great solutions. Let's bring it forward.
If I can add something on this, I really like how Kim and Anthony's captured the theme of trust, because I feel that you see it especially in education, the topic that people seem to really want to regain trust in democracy. And to regain trust in democracy, they want to understand very well how it works, and they want to understand what are the power and influence over democracy. And this has to be very clear to them. And I think that sometimes we forget it because we are so enthusiastic about democracy that unless we fix the basis, it's very difficult to build upon and move forward. So I think that the education topic, for example, is a perfect encapsulation of this problem. People don't fully grasp how democratic processes work, why they matter, why legislations work this way, and as such, they feel more distant to what we're trying to defend. So I agree with Colombe, it was a wonderful reality check for people working in this space, I think.
And that's it. We have all of the reports with all of the recommendations. We just put the top ones on our website. I think DCF is also publishing all of them. Super happy to answer any of the questions, and it was great. So thank you, Kim, Anthony, and the whole team for that us kind of reverse the process.